there's so many gatekeepers, so much negative feedback, that the most liberating thing is to stick with your ideas. When someone is doubting you, just silently give them the middle finger and go on with it and stick to your guns. Like, that's really one of my main messages for other people, because it worked for me. My name is Gordon Raphael, and I'm mostly known as a music producer, but I got into that through music, and I also do painting, video art, and I'm a published author of a book about my experiences. Before I was a well-known producer, I was working in a small basement studio in New York called Chateau Relaxo. And suddenly our phone rang, I answered it, and it was a British voice. He said his name was Ian, and I set up a microphone behind me in the control room, and he started singing. And as he was singing, I'm not even looking at him, I'm hearing in my headphones, I know that voice. And it dawned on me that that was Ian Brown from Stone Roses. And when I had finished the song, I looked at him and said, "Are you Ian Brown from Stone Roses?" And he laughed and said, "Yeah, I'm Ian Brown." And he liked my work, and he gave me an extra tip. So I made $50 instead of $25 for my hour of work. I had lived in Seattle from the time I was 8 years old, and I had been playing music there from the time I was 13. It was a fishing village. Our parents worked at Boeing. Music was not a real popular thing there. No bands were ever signed out of Seattle. And suddenly, around 1989, the music world shifted its attention to our town. And it was the most exciting thing in the world. I started becoming very interested in music production when I was about 18. One of the early bands I recorded while I was still living in Seattle was Green River, whose members split into Pearl Jam and Mudhoney, and it was very exciting for me because I saw these young guys all the time at the outdoor espresso shop downtown, and we hung out and were friendly, and then I wound up working with them. I joined a band called Sky Cries Mary. We were a 7-piece tribal space rock band, but we also had a DJ and a 1960s psychedelic light show with oils and projectors. And so our sound was completely different, but for some reason we were very beloved in our city of Seattle. Years later, after I had recorded The Strokes, I was living in London, and at my local club, Death Disco from Alan McGee, Dave Grohl walked in. But much to my surprise, he and his entourage walked right up to me, and he told his friends, "This is Gordon from Sky Cries Mary." They were the coolest band in Seattle. Being in New York at the end of the 90s was the polar opposite of being in Seattle at the beginning. There was a lot of electronic music, dance music, and everybody was pretty much talking about the internet. I had my own band in New York called Absinthe, and we met a young woman named Carrie Black, and she said, "Come see our party we're having tonight. There's 2 bands playing. One of them needs a producer." And the first band came on, and I loved them. I wanted them to work with me, so I gave them my business card. And the second band, I couldn't relate to as much, but I really needed the work, so I went up to this band called The Strokes, and I gave them my business card, and I said, "My studio is nearby. If you want to make a demo, come over." Well, the band I liked didn't show up, but The Strokes called me the next day, and we wound up making a 3-song demo. And when they said, "We want this to sound like nothing that's happening in New York right now," because what was happening was music was switching from tape to computer, and everybody was pushing that new technology to the max. So I said, "If you want to do something that nobody's doing, I have 8 microphones set up. Go play your song and I will record it, and the live energy's there. It's nothing like these giant sculptures that everyone else is making." And suddenly, people were talking about it and loving it, and Kate Moss was in the audience, and Radiohead was watching, and it was like, what? What's going on? We wound up working together on the next records because of the reaction to the sound that the world gave. The UK was the #1 place for Strokes fans immediately, and I had an opportunity to come to London to work. And one of the first bands I met in early 2002 was the Libertines, who asked me to go on tour with them and run their sound. I actually met Pete and Carl at the Strokes' first big gig in London, and Pete took me by the hand into the middle of the floor of this party, and he dropped down on one knee and rolled his hat down his sleeve and started singing me this old British song. And I thought, wow, this guy is very special. It was great. I thought I had just fallen in with the 18-year-old Beatles and they were gonna take the UK by storm. Everyone was gonna fall in love with them. And here I was, right in the middle. You know, I'd just gone from the Strokes to them. It felt like, you know, going to the next level with this opportunity. My dad was a jazz musician, but I actually did not like the music he played. But later he did me a huge favor by bringing home an album by the Beatles and one by Frank Zappa. And when I heard that music on our family's turntable, something clicked inside me and I thought, music could be very important. This sounds like very special. Albums in the 60s and 70s were starting to put incredible graphic and art design onto the record covers. So visual art became very important to me. Films became very important. Jean Cocteau, old French films, Stanley Kubrick's movies. I loved books from the time I was about 7 or 8 years old, reading biographies and pouring information about other cultures and other people and other minds. That was a big introduction. All this, you know, creativity on all these different visual and sonic dimensions were hitting me hard in my formative years. It made me feel a sense of urgency and a sense of this isn't what they're teaching me in school. This isn't what the society around me is presenting as my options. This seems to be some other third route to live your life expressively and colorfully and with sound and shaping an artistic vision. At a certain point in my mid-teenage years, I realized that the people I loved the most in music were the people that wrote their own songs. And especially I was always surrounded by excellent musicians, like guitar players that could play circles around me, keyboard players that could do things that I would never be able to do. And with that competition in mind, I found that it shut me down. And then I figured out that, wow, actually, when I just work on my own ideas and don't worry about what other people are doing, I can represent myself in a way that nobody else can. And I'm very happy with what I've been able to produce, which is about 1,000 songs so far. The ultimate compliment, which I've actually gotten a number of times, is when I read that or when I listened to that, it made me want to write a song, or I made a painting because of this music that you've been involved with. So inspiring other people to do it themselves. Don't copy me, but be so excited by what I have done that you go and find your own way to make your music and your artwork. I think that's the ultimate compliment and goal, in a way, for creativity. Art and music can definitely open up the world and destroy stereotypes. Art can elevate your mood and your feelings and give you new information by doing it and by looking at it. For me, music and art and writing and film is showing some of the best examples of what humans are capable of. We get a lot of attention on humans' idiocy and their wastefulness and their inability to get along. But if you watch a band playing together, it's kind of like they're representing the best of what humans are capable of. And I think that artwork and literature show that great potential for the human mind and the skills that can be developed.